Nature elsewhere reassures you that you belong. In Australia, it asks what you're made of. The continent's reputation for danger isn't exaggeration or internet myth. It's rooted in biology, geography, and deep evolutionary history. Australia harbors an unusually high concentration of animals capable of killing humans, particularly when venom is involved. In fact, it possesses more venomous species than nearly every country on Earth, surpassed by only 2. Yet sheer numbers don't tell the whole story. When researchers narrow their focus to venomous animals that are genuinely lethal to humans, Australia emerges as the most dangerous place of all. Nowhere else combines such potency, efficiency, and diversity of toxins within a single ecosystem. Snakes alone tell much of that story. Of the 25 most dangerous snake species on the planet, 20 are native to Australia. And astonishingly, every single snake ranked in the top 11 originates there. These aren't rare anomalies either. Many live close to human settlements. And snakes are only the beginning. Australia is also home to one of the only birds known to occasionally kill humans, the cassowary. Add in saltwater crocodiles, the largest living reptiles on Earth, great white sharks patrolling coastal waters, venomous spiders hiding in urban spaces, and jellyfish whose toxins can cause heart failure in minutes. Even the land itself seems hostile. Some of the largest insects ever recorded live here. Falling pine cones from certain trees can be fatal. And the continent has experienced the 3 largest wildfires of the 21st century, each reshaping entire ecosystems. By any modern metric, Australia feels like nature turned up the difficulty setting. And yet, strangely enough, this version of Australia is mild compared to what came before. To understand just how extreme things once were, we have to rewind time, not to the age of dinosaurs, though they did roam here, but to a far more recent period when monstrous reptiles and megafauna dominated the landscape. Giant lizards, land-based crocodiles, and enormous predatory marsupials once ruled the continent. Even more unsettling is how recently this era occurred. Roughly 50,000 years ago, Australia reached what might be described as its ecological peak of chaos. This timing is not random. It aligns almost perfectly with the arrival of humans on the continent. Early Australians didn't step into a balanced ecosystem. They walked straight into a land ruled by reptiles, where mammals were often secondary players. At that time, cold-blooded predators sat at the top of the food web. One of the first signs that something was deeply wrong would have appeared almost immediately: a crocodile running across dry land. Not a crocodile-like animal, not a distant relative. A true crocodilian, evolved specifically to hunt on land. This creature was known as quinkana, and it was one of Australia's most formidable predators during the Pleistocene epoch. Quinkana shared many characteristics with modern crocodiles and was originally classified as a true crocodile. Later discoveries revealed an unusually shaped skull, prompting paleontologists to reclassify it into an extinct group known as Macosachina. But the skull was only part of the mystery. Unlike today's crocodiles, Quinkana had long, pillar-like legs. These limbs lifted its body clear of the ground, allowing it to move efficiently across uneven terrain. Some researchers believe it could even sprint over short distances. Supporting this idea were its hoof-like toes and a flattened tail poorly suited for swimming, clear indicators of a terrestrial lifestyle. Unfortunately for anything sharing its environment, Quinkana was not small. Most adults reached lengths of around 3 meters or 10 feet and weighed roughly 200 kilograms, similar in mass to a medium-sized American alligator. However, fossil evidence shows that some individuals grew much larger. One specimen reached an estimated 6 meters or nearly 20 feet, making it a true nightmare on land. At that size, humans were well within its prey range. A Quinkana attack would have been horrifying. Its teeth were not conical like those of modern crocodiles, but instead flattened, compressed, and heavily serrated. These blade-like teeth, known as syphodont dentition, are more commonly associated with theropod dinosaurs. Each bite functioned like a series of knives, slicing through muscle and flesh rather than crushing bone. This dental design allowed Quincana to kill animals larger than itself, carving massive wounds with every bite. And while it spent most of its time on land, evidence suggests it could swim competently when necessary. Escaping into water may not have saved you. Shockingly, even this land-hunting crocodile wasn't the apex threat. That distinction likely belongs to Megalenia. Often cited as the largest lizard to ever exist, Megalenia is now scientifically known as Varanus priscus, confirming that it was a colossal monitor lizard. Despite the reclassification, the original name persists, perhaps because Megalenia, meaning great roamer, captures its presence so perfectly. Paleontologists continue to debate its exact size, but all estimates point to something enormous. Conservative reconstructions suggest a minimum length of 3.5 meters, or 11 feet, with a weight around 158 kilograms. That alone makes it as long as a sea lion and heavier than a reindeer. More ambitious estimates push its length to nearly 7.9 meters, or 26 feet, based on scaling fossil fragments against modern monitor lizards. At that size, Megalenia would rival the longest anacondas ever recorded, yet weigh over 8 times more due to its thick, muscular build. Maximum weight estimates reach 2 metric tons, though most large individuals were likely closer to 575 kilograms. Like its modern relatives, Megalenia had long, recurved, razor-sharp teeth designed to grip and tear flesh. It likely relied on powerful limbs and hooked claws to overpower prey. And in classic Australian fashion, it may have been venomous. All living monitor lizards possess venom glands. Their venom acts as an anticoagulant, preventing blood from clotting and increasing shock and infection. Because the Komodo dragon, also known as the Komodo monitor, is Megalenia's closest living relative, many paleontologists believe Megalenia hunted the same way: bite, retreat, and wait. This means even if prey escaped the initial attack, survival was unlikely. Unless, of course, snakes terrified you more. For those who fear serpents, the most dreadful inhabitant of prehistoric Australia may have been Wonambi. Though the name may sound unassuming, it belonged to a massive extinct snake that lived alongside Quincana and Megalenia. Wonambi was part of an ancient group known as matsoid snakes, a lineage characterized by primitive, inflexible jaws and immense size. While it didn't exceed the longest snakes alive today, the largest individuals reached lengths of around 6 meters, or 20 feet, comparable to a large Burmese python. Unlike many Australian predators, Wonambi was not venomous, but its size alone made it lethal. It likely hunted using ambush tactics near rivers and waterholes, constricting prey until blood flow to the brain and heart was cut off. However, its rigid jaws and relatively small head prevented it from swallowing large animals whole. Instead, Wonambi compensated by tearing chunks of flesh from its victims, sometimes disemboweling them entirely. This brutal feeding strategy may have been disturbingly common. Studies of some modern indigenous populations show that constrictor snake attacks still account for a notable number of deaths today, suggesting that early Australians frequently faced similar dangers. With so many reptilian predators, it seems impossible that mammals could survive. Yet they didn't just survive, they became monsters themselves. The most extreme example is Thylacoleo, often called the marsupial lion. It was the largest mammalian predator ever to evolve in Australia. Average individuals were roughly the size of European wild boars, while the largest rivaled fully grown female lions and tigers. Despite its nickname, Thylacoleo was not a cat. It was a marsupial, most closely related to Colus. Like Colus, it likely had a relatively small brain. But this turned out to be a major advantage. The reduced brain cavity allowed space for enormous jaw muscles and reinforced skull bones. The result was astonishing. Thylacoleo had the strongest bite force relative to body size of any known mammal. A medium-sized individual could bite with the same force as a lion more than twice its size. Paleontologists believe it could take down prey up to 15 times heavier than itself. Its teeth were equally specialized. Large, blade-like premolars functioned almost like bolt cutters, while elongated incisors acted similarly to canines. Together, they allowed Thylacoleo to sever windpipes, arteries, and even spinal cords with terrifying efficiency, often killing large prey in under a minute. By comparison, African lions may take 15 minutes or longer. If its bite somehow failed, Thylacoleo had a backup plan. Each front limb bore a massive retractable claw attached to a semi-opposable thumb. These hooked claws suggest it could climb trees, drag prey upward like a leopard, and navigate caves and rocky terrain with ease. Predators, however, weren't the only danger. Australia's herbivores evolved into living tanks. A prime example is Diprotodon, an extinct marsupial related to modern wombats. While the resemblance was there, the size difference was staggering. Diprotodon may have weighed up to 3.85 tons, comparable to a fully grown Asian elephant. Although strictly herbivorous, it possessed an incredibly powerful bite. Measurements suggest a bite force of roughly 11,000 newtons at the molars, enough to theoretically snap a human femur. Hunting such an animal would have been extraordinarily dangerous. Even birds were massive. The Ginornis, part of a group known as thunderbirds, stood over 2 meters tall and weighed around 250 kilograms. Though herbivorous, its enormous bones, sharp claws, and powerful beak made it more than capable of defending itself from predators. By this point, it should be clear that prehistoric Australia was one of the most hostile environments imaginable. Nearly every dangerous animal alive there today already existed back then, alongside even more extinct threats, including giant turtles and additional crocodilians such as Palomarchus. At extreme droughts and brutal climate conditions, and survival seemed nearly impossible. And yet, humans endured. Not only did they survive, they thrived. Evidence shows early Australians hunted multiple megafauna species discussed here, suggesting that in the end, the most dangerous animal on the continent may have been us.